Welcome, Catherine. Thank you so much for being here with us today to celebrate International Women's History Month and also International Women's Day. Hashtag Inspire Inclusion. First of all, if we could start with yourself, Chief People and Sustainability Officer. Why did you choose a career in finance?
Well, firstly, thanks ever so much for having me today. It's really great for me to be able to talk about this topic because it's something that's really close to my heart. So I've been in finance for just over 20 years now. I've worked for a number of organisations. I've done a number of roles, and it's probably not necessarily something that I chose, but something I probably fell into because my background was clothing retail.
Wow.
So I started in HBOS. I worked in the estate agency division for HBOS. Then I moved across to Santander and I did retail banking along with business banking. Then I went to work for TSB as their strategy and performance director. And I think that really gave me an opportunity to work in a broader role right across the bank, really starting to understand how a bank operates. And then I joined the Co-operative bank in 2020. I joined as the managing director for small business. And then I became the Chief People and Sustainability Officer at the beginning of 2023. So I think my responsibilities are everything you think about to do with people. ED&I obviously included in that. I also head up the estates and facilities team, the brand marketing and comms team. And I'm also responsible for the bank's ESG commitments and sustainability report, and obviously values and ethics, which is something that we hold very dear to at the bank. But I think, I'm very active in the cooperative movement as well. So I work alongside a lot of the really big cooperatives, including Co-op Group. And I also work very closely with Cooperatives UK. A lot of work in the cooperative movement. But I think throughout my career, I've always been very interested in diversity and inclusion. So whoever I've worked for, whatever role I've had, I've been very active in the network. And I'm really proud that I'm the executive sponsor for our gender network here at the bank called Elevate.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And I think, when you mention diversity and inclusion, and I know when we were talking earlier, you mentioned you have a new role in that space as well. What exactly, the theme for this year for International Women's Day is inclusive, right? And it's inspiring inclusive environments. What have you done or what are you doing in Co-operative Bank to enable that for men and women?
So I think, it's my key role as the Chief People Officer to make our environment and our working environment as inclusive as I can. I think our networks are a key driver of that. Okay. And we've got a number across the bank, obviously of which our gender one is quite prevalent. And I think through, that network, we really do try to focus allyship as well, because it's about that gender balance, isn't it? And I think it's not, we don't necessarily, we do obviously promote females, and what we can do more for females and try to address some of the well-known facts around, confidence in females and flexible working arrangements, etc., to really help them think about, the career and how we can overcome that for them. And I think it's also about very strong succession planning as well. But we equally focus on males because what we find sometimes in entry-level roles, males aren't as interested in coming to finance into those kind of roles. So I think it's really important that we have that really healthy balance, because our studies have shown that's what makes a successful, profitable business.
Yes, no, absolutely. And that was one of the questions actually I was going to ask you, was how exactly, do you measure this? How do we know what success looks like?
So obviously we have our gender pay gap. So I know that is something obviously we publish every year, and I'm really pleased to say that is steadily improving, which is good. There's definitely more work to do in that space. We also signed up to the Women in Finance Charter as well. So we've set an aspirational target of 45% females in all our senior roles. So again, we are making progress. We're improving year on year, which is great. But, this year I really do want to try and crack that 45% because I think that'll be really important for the bank. And at the back end of last year as well, I brought in a new colleague to purely focus on ED&I. So it's fantastic that, we've got a key lead on that, and I'm working with Craig to build out our strategy. And I think that's going to be really important as to how we measure that. And I think not just across gender, but all diversity. Yes, that's a key thing for us. And I think, we'll have a really clearly defined plan in the next couple of months that, I can share with the business, and the networks can help me deliver alongside all colleagues and executive members of our bank.
Wow. I think that key role, that diversity covering everything, because I know
it is.
We certainly have within Kyndryl our inclusion networks as well.
Yes.
And it is trying to make sure we work across as opposed to just too siloed.
Yes,
absolutely.
It is. And it's great because I think those networks are really going to support that people strategy. So as long as people are really clear on what we're trying to deliver and what our aims are as a bank, then our networks can certainly help us do that. But I'm really keen, as you say, to see our networks do work well together, but I think we can still continue to improve on that and really have that intersectionality across everything that we do. So that is my pure aspiration to be able to do that.
Brilliant. And there's plenty more we can learn from you in that space, I'm sure.
And likewise, we can learn from yourself as well. Because I don't think anybody has the answer, do they? And I think that's why, partnerships like this are really important, because we do learn from each other.
Completely. And imposter syndrome, and I know you've been very passionate and vocal about this and have brought it up at other events. It's definitely something that I think we all suffer from at different stages in our lives.
I think we do.
Completely. Yeah. What would be your advice, looking back on, I guess, what you've experienced? What would be your advice to other females and males? Because it's not just a female.
It's absolutely not just a female. And I know there's a lot of research and a lot of talk about it just being in females, but I think it's equally in males, as you say.
Yes.
And I think there's definitely points in my career where when I reflect back, and I think, I did definitely have a bit of imposter syndrome. Obviously, as I've said, I've worked for a number of organisations. So whenever you start with a new organisation, it may be a completely different kind of role to what you've been used to. There's times where I really have had that imposter syndrome, and I can recognise it. There was a little bit of that when I came into the Chief People and Sustainability role.
Yes, of course.
Because it was a completely new role to me. I've been always commercially focused, P&L type roles. So to sort of head up as a Chief People Officer for the bank was a big move for me.
A real pivot, yeah.
A real pivot for me. But I think, it was really good to see that board members and our CEO had seen something in me that felt actually I was the right person to sit at the exec table to really focus on the people agenda. And I think that's just purely down to the passion that I've always had around people.
Yes.
And, ESG, no matter what I've done, diversity, inclusion, it's always been a key part of everything that I've done. And I think my advice to somebody is just stay true to yourself. And I know that that's when it's definitely worked for me. I think we've each got our own value sets. Don't try to be something that you're not. Be the person that you are. And I think, you will always be successful then, because you're staying true to your own values and you're not trying to force something.
Absolutely. And I think you've got a really ambitious target when you mentioned 45% females. We clearly still have a challenge when we look across the C-suite that it is predominantly male dominated. Progress definitely has been made, but there's a lot more for us to do. It's keeping women in the workforce, isn't it? And getting them to those senior levels, because certainly in some industries, and I know for us, when we bring in graduates, when we bring in younger people, very often it is actually a 50-50 split, but it's getting them up to the senior levels and the C-suite. That can be where the obstacles come in. What else are you doing in that space, I guess, to try and keep the females and progress them up to the senior levels?
I think there's two key things that we can be doing. So I think we do need to think about policy and procedure and how we can really support colleagues to give them that flexible working. And particularly for females who, will have time off for maybe pregnancy and maternity leave, and also maybe have a career break, have maybe got carer responsibilities as well. But equally, I think we're seeing more males doing that.
Yes.
And I think I'd love to see more males sort of taking those opportunities as well and not thinking that it's going to hinder their career. So I think that's why we've got to have those policies. I think about talking about it as well, showcasing stories as well where it's been really successful, particularly if you've got parental shared leave. I think that is so important, or carers shared leave as well, because I think there's maybe a stigma, particularly around males, that if they take that break, then their career is going to take a halt. So I think we've got to work really hard at that. I think the second thing I'd probably say is, fostering mentorship and sponsorship of females as well, to get them into those most senior roles, to think about, okay, what's their individual development that they may need, and matching them with the right person to be able to help them, support them, coach them through it. And I think it's that real allyship to make sure that we do get that gender bias, because there can be gender bias in certain roles. And I think it's understanding that females can bring a different perspective. And I think that gives for a balanced organisation, as I've said before. And I think that's what you need. We all want a balanced, successful organisation. And I think that mix and that balance is really key.
Absolutely. Throughout all roles.
Absolutely, throughout all roles.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And then I think you think about your succession, don't you? And I think that's really important as well. And that if, any colleague takes any time out of the business, they know that when they come back into the business, they can still have a career. They're still on that path. They've maybe just taken a small break from it.
Completely. And they can develop. Absolutely. You mentioned one of my, I suppose, passions is very much around mentorship and
Yes.
sponsorship, and how key it is, I think, for all individuals to make sure that they get the right support, or put in the right, the right focus when it comes to certain opportunities. What has that played? How has that played a role, I guess, for you in your career? And are you sponsoring and mentoring many people in your organisation?
So I think it's played a key part for me in my career. I think I've been very, very fortunate that I've always had the opportunity to have a mentor. In my latter stages of my career as well, I've been fortunate to have an executive coach. I think what that mentor can really help you with is your own self-development. They'll probably recognise traits in you that you don't always recognise in yourself, because I think we're always very self-critical. But I think also with that mentorship, they can help with that development point. I think it's really key. So and I think executive coaches, play a different part, because I think generally they're external to your organisation. I think you can openly share any issues you may be facing or challenges, and they can give you advice and guidance. So I think everybody, can almost have that external perspective, because we all know people that work from different businesses. And again, it's that different perspective, isn't it, that may well help you with that certain challenge or certain stage you are in your career that you think, well, what's next? It's that external perspective that I think is really important. So yes, I do mentor. I'm sure it's no surprise. A number of colleagues, both males and females. And I think to me, that's one of the most rewarding parts of my role, and any role that I've had, really, to be able to help people with their development, realise their own career aspirations, whatever they may be, or their life aspirations, because sometimes people are just very happy doing what they're doing. They just want to be brilliant at it. And I think we equally have to accept that as well.
Absolutely. I think this last question I've been dying to ask you, because it's such an unusual role to be Chief People Officer and Sustainability Officer.
Yes.
And I know Co-operative Bank, one of the most ethical banks in Europe, a big part of your heritage. What exactly, I guess, can we all learn from yourselves, what you're doing in this space and what you're aspiring to achieve, I guess, over the next number of years? So
I think you're absolutely right. Sustainability is always, is a key part of our DNA, and it always has been, and the bank is 150 years old, and we, apply those cooperative values and those ethical stance throughout everything that we do. So I think it almost feels very natural for us to be able to do that, because that's who we are. I think now we've actually got an official sort of badge or title, if you like, around sort of ESG and sustainability. I think what sets us aside from others is our customer-led policy. And this is a survey that we do every sort of 3 to 4 years, where we invite all our customers to give us feedback on what they would like us to really focus on. What are the real ethical drivers for them as customers? Because we know that's why customers bank with us. That's why businesses bank with us. We know that's why colleagues work for us as well. So I think our customers really hold us true to that ethical stance. They tell us where we want to invest our money. They also tell us what activities they'd like us to do. We work with a number of really key charities and organisations, and I think that helps us to campaign. I think it helps us to fundraise. It helps us to break through some of those barriers and some of those myths, but we have to stay true to those values. And I think particularly the cooperative movement as well really challenges us if we are delivering those cooperative values. So I think that's great. So we do have a sustainability report. We work really hard around that every year. But I think our colleagues also hold us to account, because it's important to them. So, I'm pleased to say that in 2023, we quadrupled the number of volunteering days that we did. We did nearly 2,500 volunteering days across the bank. That equates to about £350,000 worth of sort of manpower, if you like. And we predominantly focused on food banks as well, but our colleagues can volunteer in any sector that they want. And we do have an app called On Hand that was actually featured on Dragon's Den.
Okay.
And that gives our colleagues opportunities to do those volunteerings for the causes that really matter to them. So I don't think it'll come as any surprise. We have got some very ambitious plans. We've obviously set our net zero targets as well. And we're just working through what that transition plan looks like. But I think every year we will have key campaigns that we are fostering. So we're working with Friends of the Earth and Shelter at the moment, and those are sort of our key campaigns.
Fantastic. Amazing. And it clearly is part of your DNA. And it's that sense of purpose, I guess, when you mention your colleagues and clients, your customers, that it's throughout everything that you do.
It is. Definitely. And I think that sense of purpose you talked about, we do an annual colleague engagement survey every year. And I'm delighted to say that we're about 11 points ahead of our peer group around the belief in our purpose. That's how strong it is at the bank.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you.
been so enjoyable.
It has, thank you.
It's great. I know we've worked with Co-operative Bank before around D&I, and it's something that we would love to continue to do again. This has been amazing. We'll obviously continue to celebrate International Women's Day with you, but we'll do more in this space. So thank you very much.
No, thank you. That's great. We look forward to it.